They hiked alone and vanished forever. The wilderness doesn't keep count of the lost, but we do. Our national parks see hundreds of deaths every single year. But this isn't about the numbers. It's about the individuals. The people who walk past a certain tree line, over a ridge, and just seem to get deleted from existence. They go out looking for solitude and find something far more permanent. They hike alone, and they vanish forever. What happens in those final, terrifying hours? What are the critical mistakes that turn a simple day hike into a lifelong mystery? It's not just about getting lost. It's about how the wild, and its vast, silent indifference, simply erases people. There's a certain romance to solo hiking, an allure that calls to a specific kind of person. It's the promise of absolute freedom, of relying on nothing but your own 2 feet and your own wits. It's a chance to unplug from all the noise and connect with something primal, something real. You picture yourself on top of a mountain, the world stretching out below, feeling that quiet sense of accomplishment. No distractions, no one to talk to, just you and the raw, untamed beauty of it all. But that beautiful romance has a dark side. The very solitude that people crave is the same thing that ensures when something goes wrong, it goes catastrophically wrong. For every solo hiker who comes back with stories of empowerment, there's another who becomes a statistic, a face on a missing person poster stapled to a sign at the trailhead. The reasons people disappear out there are as varied as the landscapes themselves, but a terrifying pattern starts to show up when you look at the stories. A simple mistake, a moment of bad luck that would be just an inconvenience for a group, becomes a potential death sentence for one person. A twisted ankle, a wrong turn down an animal path, a sudden, violent shift in the weather. When you're alone, there's no one there to help you with first aid. There's no one to look at the map with you and say, wait, I think we're going the wrong way. There's no one to help you throw up a shelter when the temperature drops and the wind starts to scream. Panic becomes your only companion, and it's a terrible guide. That's what we're looking at today. The stories of people who walked into the wilderness by themselves and never walked out. We're going to try to understand the critical mistakes they made and the terrifying reality that led to them being erased from the face of the earth. The Appalachian Trail is more than just a path. It's a 2,200-mile artery stretching from Georgia to Maine. For thousands of people every year, it's the ultimate test of endurance. In 2013, that challenge belonged to 66-year-old Geraldine Largay, a retired nurse from Tennessee. Jerry, who went by the trail name Inchworm, wasn't some rookie. She was experienced, well-prepared, and had planned her journey for months. Her husband, George, was her one-man support crew, meeting her at road crossings with fresh food and gear. She was methodical, tough, and more than halfway done with her epic trip when she walked into the dense, remote woods of western Maine. On the morning of July 22, 2013, Jerry was hiking a particularly rugged section of the trail. She planned to meet George the next day. But at some point that morning, she did something thousands of hikers do every day. She stepped off the trail to find a private spot to use the bathroom. A simple, human moment. She probably walked just a few dozen feet into the thick green brush that, in Maine, can look impossibly the same in every direction. When she turned to go back, the trail was gone. Just imagine that feeling. The first flicker of confusion. You turn one way, then another. The familiar brown ribbon of dirt, your lifeline, has vanished. Panic starts to prickle at the edge of your mind. This is where being alone becomes critical. There's no one to call out to, no one to say, hey, I think it's this way. There is only you and the silent, disorienting woods. Jerry was lost. But she did what you're supposed to do. She tried to stay put and get help. She found a small clearing, set up her tent, and pulled out her phone. Over and over, she scrambled to higher ground, desperate for a signal. The phone's log, found years later, tells a heartbreaking story. She sent a series of texts to her husband, frantic pleas for help that never made it out of the wilderness. In some trouble, one read. Got off trail to go to BR. Now lost. Can you call AMC to see if a trail maintainer can help me? The next day, another. Lost since yesterday. Off trail 3 or 4 miles. Call police for what to do, please. Not a single one went through. Her husband, George, got to their meeting spot and waited. When she never arrived, he reported her missing, kicking off one of the biggest search and rescue missions in Maine's history. For weeks, hundreds of people searched for her. They covered the trail, the side paths, every inch of that rugged land, and found nothing. It was like the forest just swallowed her whole. Eventually, the search was called off. 2 years later, in October 2015, a logger doing a survey stumbled onto a collapsed tent in a remote patch of woods, just over 2 miles from the trail. Inside, he found human remains, a sleeping bag, and a small, weathered journal. It was Geraldine Largay. Her journal was the final, devastating record of her ordeal. It revealed she had survived for an incredible 26 days after she got lost. For 26 days, she waited for a rescue that never came. She rationed her food and tried to keep her spirits up, but as the weeks crawled by, her hope started to die. Her final entry was a message to whoever would find her. When you find my body, please call my husband George and my daughter Carrie, she wrote. It will be the greatest kindness for them to know that I am dead and where you found me, no matter how many years from now. Gerry Largay's story is a brutal lesson in how a tiny mistake can spiral into a fatal tragedy when you're alone. Stepping off the trail was the mistake. Being by herself is what made it fatal. If she'd been with a partner, it's almost certain they would have found their way back together. She wasn't taken down by a fall, an animal, or a storm. She was erased by a few feet of dense forest and the crushing weight of being completely and utterly alone. Some landscapes are just deceptive. They look open, easy to read, almost friendly. Joshua Tree National Park is a place like that. With its iconic, twisted trees and dramatic rock piles under a clear sky, it feels like a place where you couldn't get lost if you tried. You can see for miles. But that beauty hides a maze of canyons and washes that can disorient anyone. It's a landscape that preys on overconfidence. In June of 2010, 65-year-old Bill Ewasko, a strong and experienced hiker, parked his rental car to go for a day hike. He loved Joshua Tree and knew the area well. He told his girlfriend he was going to hike one loop, but his car was found 2 days later at a completely different trailhead. That was the first mystery in a case that would confuse everyone for years. The official search started right away. For 11 days, helicopters, ground teams, and dogs combed the rugged terrain around his car. They found nothing. Not a footprint, not a piece of trash, not a single trace of Bill Ewasko. He had vanished into thin air. But the search didn't end there. In one of the most fascinating turns in any missing person case, a group of amateur sleuths and search and rescue volunteers refused to let it go. They took the few clues they had, the car's location and a single, faint cell phone ping detected days after he went missing, and started one of the most incredible amateur searches ever. For years, they spent their weekends systematically searching the massive, unforgiving wilderness of Joshua Tree. Their theory was that Bill, being an adventurous hiker, had probably gone off-trail to climb a peak or explore an interesting rock formation. It's something experienced hikers do all the time. You see something cool in the distance, you feel good about your skills, and you take a detour. But in a place like Joshua Tree, a simple detour can lead you into a trap. The searchers believe Bill may have tried to reach a rock feature called Serenity Spire, and in doing so, he might have dropped down into one of the area's steep, treacherous canyons. This is where a hiker can get cliffed out. You go down a series of ledges that are easy to descend, but impossible to climb back up. You keep pushing forward, assuming you'll find a way out, only to realize you're trapped at the bottom of a gorge with sheer walls on all sides. This is when the psychology of being lost really takes over. Your internal map doesn't match the world around you anymore. Disorientation kicks in, and then panic. You start making bad decisions, leaving your backpack behind, trying to climb an impossible cliff, or just wandering aimlessly, burning through your water under the brutal desert sun. For 12 long years, the mystery held. The amateur searchers covered thousands of miles, but the desert kept its secret. Then, in February 2022, a group of hikers exploring a remote part of the park stumbled upon human remains. Next to them was a wallet. Inside was Bill Ewasko's ID. He was found tragically close to a park road, less than a mile from safety. This final, heartbreaking detail suggests he had become profoundly lost. The theory is that after realizing he was in trouble, he spent days wandering, trying to find his way out, and finally collapsed from exposure, just short of being found. He wasn't a victim of an animal or foul play. He was a victim of the desert's deceptive nature and the compounding errors that come from a disoriented mind. His case is a stark reminder that no matter how good you are, the wilderness can scramble your senses, and when you're alone, there's no one there to set your compass straight. These stories are intense, and they serve as powerful warnings. If you think it's important to understand these risks and learn from the tragedies of the past, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps us continue to explore these complex and often heartbreaking cases, so we can all be a little safer and more prepared out there. There are places on Earth where the weather isn't just a factor in your survival, it's the only factor. The Presidential Range in New Hampshire's White Mountains is one of those places. It's home to what many call the worst weather in the world. Mount Washington has recorded winds of 231 miles per hour. In winter, the wind chill can hit 100 degrees below zero. It's a profoundly serious place, especially if you're alone. Kate Matrosova was not an average hiker. The 32-year-old was a passionate and experienced mountaineer. She'd climbed major peaks all over the world and was even training to summit Mount Everest. She was fit, determined, and had all the right gear. In February 2015, she set out to do a solo traverse of the northern Presidential Range in a single day. It was an incredibly tough goal, but one she probably felt she could handle. She checked the weather the night before. It called for cold and wind, but for someone training for Everest, that might have seemed like a good training day. What she might not have known is that the forecast got much worse overnight. A powerful storm was moving in faster than expected. The conditions on the exposed ridges were about to become unsurvivable. Her husband dropped her off at the trailhead before sunrise. She started her climb, moving quickly up into the alpine zone, above the protection of the trees. As she got higher, the weather fell apart. The wind exploded into hurricane-force gusts. The temperature plummeted. Blowing snow created a complete whiteout. Try to put yourself in that situation. You're alone, miles from safety, on an exposed ridge. The wind is strong enough to knock you down. You can't see your own hand in front of your face. The cold is so intense it feels like it's burning your skin. Hypothermia starts to set in, slowing your muscles, draining your energy, and, worst of all, confusing your mind. Around 3:30 that afternoon, Kate Matrosova knew she was in mortal danger. She activated her personal locator beacon, sending an emergency signal out to the world. That single action tells you she knew she was about to die. The signal immediately triggered a search and rescue mission. But the same storm that was killing her was also stopping rescuers from getting to her. A team of elite rescuers headed up the mountain, straight into the teeth of the storm. The conditions were horrific, with 100-mile-per-hour winds and blinding snow. To make matters worse, a glitch with her beacon sent a second, bad location, which made the team waste precious time searching the wrong area. They searched through the night, but the storm was too powerful. They were forced to turn back, knowing that her chances of survival were disappearing with every passing minute. The next day, they went back up. Finally, in the afternoon, they found her. Kate Matrosova's body was frozen in the snow between Mount Madison and Mount Adams. She had died of exposure, completely overwhelmed by the sheer violence of the storm. She was an expert, she was prepared, but she was alone. Without a partner to help make decisions, to help dig an emergency snow cave, or even just to share body heat, she never stood a chance. Her story shows that sometimes, no amount of skill or gear can save you when the wilderness decides to unleash its power. It's a chilling reminder that when you go out there by yourself, you are completely vulnerable to the whims of the elements. Most of the time, when a hiker vanishes alone, we can eventually piece the story together. We find evidence, we form a theory, and we learn a lesson from the tragedy. Injury, disorientation, weather, these are the familiar ghosts that haunt the backcountry. But there are other stories. Stories that defy any easy explanation, that leave behind a permanent, unsettling question mark. These are the cases where a person seems to have been simply plucked out of existence, leaving behind clues that only make the mystery deeper. These are the cases that force us to confront two far more sinister possibilities: foul play and the truly bizarre. While it's rare, crimes against hikers do happen, and a solo hiker is the most vulnerable target you can imagine. The same remote emptiness that gives you peace and quiet also provides the perfect cover for someone with violent intentions. This brings us to the deeply disturbing disappearance of 14-year-old Stacey Arras. In July of 1981, Stacey was on a horseback trip in Yosemite National Park with her father and several others. They reached the Sunrise High Sierra Camp, a group of cabins sitting at over 9,000 feet. As the group was settling in, Stacey, a keen photographer, wanted to walk to a nearby lake to take pictures. An elderly man from their group offered to go with her. They started down the trail, still in full view of her father and the others at the camp. After a short walk, the 71-year-old man got tired and sat on a rock to rest, telling Stacey he'd wait for her right there. The others watched as Stacey continued down the path, walked behind a small grove of trees, and never came out the other side. After a few minutes, the man she was with got worried and went back to the cabins to get help. A frantic search started immediately. The only thing they ever found was the lens cap from her camera, lying on a log just off the trail. Of Stacey, there was no other sign. What followed was a massive, 9-day search. Over 100 people, dog teams, helicopters, the full power of a National Park Service operation. They covered every inch of the area around the camp. They found nothing. No backpack, no camera, no clothing, no sign of a struggle. Not one thing. Park officials at first suggested she might have run away, but that made no sense. She was wearing flimsy flip-flops, hardly the right shoes for a teenager running away into the high mountains. An animal attack was another theory, but a search that big would have almost certainly found some trace. Blood, torn clothing, something. There was nothing. The case of Stacey Arras is so unsettling because it feels impossible. She disappeared from a populated area in broad daylight, while being watched in a window of just a few minutes. It's a classic locked room mystery, but the room is a patch of Yosemite wilderness. The case files are huge, but they offer no answers. Did she run into someone with evil intentions in that brief moment she was out of sight? Foul play has never been ruled out, and it remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in the history of our national parks. It's a terrifying reminder that the wilderness doesn't just hold natural dangers. It can also hold human ones. The stories we've looked at are more than just warnings. They're echoes from the places where people were lost forever. From Geraldine Largay, whose simple wrong turn led to a 26-day ordeal, we learn that the smallest mistake is impossible to overcome when there's no one there to help you fix it. From Bill Ewasko, swallowed by the confusing landscape of Joshua Tree, we see how even an expert can be defeated by his own mind. His story shows that when panic takes over, it can lead you away from safety even when it's just within reach. From Kate Matrosova, an elite mountaineer extinguished by the fury of the White Mountains, we get a brutal reminder of nature's absolute power. Her fate proves that no amount of strength can guarantee survival when you face the full force of a storm completely alone. And from the haunting mystery of Stacey Arras, we have to accept the unsettling truth that some dangers aren't from the wilderness at all, but are brought into it by other people. The pull of the wild is strong, and the need for solitude is a deeply human one. But the wilderness doesn't care about your experience, your gear, or your plans. Hiking alone magnifies every risk, it removes every safety net, and it leaves zero room for error. The people in these stories weren't just lost, they were erased. And they are a permanent, tragic reminder that when you walk into the great, silent wilderness by yourself, you have to be prepared for the possibility that it might never let you go.